You're live.
And we're live. So don't say anything you're not supposed to say. We're going to wait for it to show up as 10 o'clock. And then we will start our show. And we have a very, very interesting guest this morning. Could you please mute your phone?
If yours goes off, I'm just going to double back on you. Just remember that.
Oh, mine is off.
Ooh.
I know. First time for everything, isn't it? All right. Well, it's 10 o'clock, and welcome to another wonderful and exciting broadcast of We Are Dementia Strong Live. And if you're viewing, Melinda's the first one to join us, and good morning, Melinda. We have a very special guest this morning, and but I'm going to give you a little bit of his back history, and we'll go from there.
Introduce him first.
Oh yeah, it's Evan Holler, and Evan Holler is the public policy manager for the Alzheimer's Association, and he's been doing this since May of 2018. But since Evan was just a young child, he's actually a very good friend of mine. Since he was young, he has been passionate about technology and how the past century of marketing is shifting to a new age of digital media. Today, he finds himself in public policy, changing the way the nation sees Alzheimer's disease and all dementias. And with the help of the most amazing volunteers, he empowers constituents in the state of Florida to not only to find the care solutions for a loved one living with this disease, because we advocate with state and federal elected leaders to increase awareness for this growing public health epidemic. Welcome to the show, Evan.
Brian, it's so good to be here with you, my friend. I mean, this is definitely going to be the best part of my week, and such a great way to start our Saturday. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, because we know that you've been busy doing a lot of different things. So, but Saturdays you can take an hour out.
Saturdays are for Brian LeBLanc. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. See, this is why she doesn't want to be on camera, because look, she can give me the look. You know,
I'm trying to think of what day isn't all about Brian.
That's so true. That's so true. Oh
boy, thanks.
Good to keep us on our toes, Maureen.
Yeah. Okay, so here comes the questions. What has been the most rewarding part of your job?
Yeah, so Brian's, I think you're going to know what my answer is, but just a little bit about what I do. So public policy, being a public policy manager, basically I'm working with volunteers just like Brian in the state of Florida to really build relationships with their elected leaders, both on a state and federal level, really to educate them on what they're going through, with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, and to really share those personal, intimate stories, because if our elected leaders don't hear them, it's crucial that they do. So the most rewarding part of this job is not going into electeds' offices, meeting with them. I mean, that's great, but my absolute favorite part is working with volunteers just like you, Brian. We've had a lot of different journeys together, to Tallahassee, to Washington, D.C. I think going to D.C. with you was one of my favorite trips 2 years ago. I mean, we had a blast.
We did.
So it just, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like taking constituents in to meet with their elected leaders and really empowering them. So our volunteers at the association are really the heart and soul of everything that we do, not just in public policy. And so that's the most rewarding part of this job. And that's what really fills my soul every day when I'm doing this.
Well, we thank you for what you do, because you do a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody ever sees. And you just show up and everything's done, but that has a lot to do with you and your coworkers.
What was
Yeah.
it? Safety pins?
Huh?
Was it safety?
Oh yeah, safety pins.
Oh,
You did forget those. So
well, I after our Tallahassee rally and Tallahassee, so the safety pins are important because they help us put our purple sashes on, so you can never have too many of them. And after our day of like 95 meetings, Brian took them home. So you might have taken them from me. I might not have forgotten them. We're still figuring that case out, but
He still has them.
anyway, I knew that they would be safe with you and that one day I would be reconnected with those long lost safety pins.
I can't even lie.
You can dream.
You do dream, though.
Yes, I can. People with dementia, we dream. Okay, so why is the advocacy that we do, why is it important when connecting with our state and federal elected officials? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. So basically, if as constituents, I'm a constituent too, so I get to meet my electeds, but as constituents, it is our job to educate our elected officials on what's going on in our lives that could be positively impacted by maybe more funding or legislation or anything like that. A lot of constituents get a lot of heat for maybe not being able to cover every single policy issue and topic, but I truly believe it's up to advocacy and advocacy groups and volunteers to make sure that their stories are heard, to ensure that the electeds are listening, in a very positive way. A lot of times right now we see, people trying to engage with their elected officials by maybe yelling at them or calling them bad names. And in advocacy with the association, we take a very positive approach. We build meaningful relationships with their electeds and their staff. And we get a lot more work done that way. So I think if you're new to that advocacy scene or you want to get involved or anything like that, the first step to that is really taking, especially with Alzheimer's, taking that personal journey that you've had and really repackaging it into something positive to share with our elected officials. And, even it doesn't matter if you're one voice or 100 voices strong. I mean, that one conversation can really make a difference and really change the heart and minds of our elected. So, keep sharing those stories. I know they're difficult at times, but they're so impactful to this process. And that's honestly the most impactful thing that, constituents can do with their elected officials.
One of the things that I noticed when we're doing our advocacy is that when I tell them, what I have and so forth, the majority of them, which is kind of sad, but the majority of them will say, oh, well, my grandmother or my mother, father, or another member of their family had, and then, they'll tell me whether it was Alzheimer's or what type of dementia. It's hard to find someone nowadays who hasn't had a connection to someone who has been affected by some sort of dementia-related illness.
You're right. So I've been doing this for about 4.5 years. The first time that we went to DC, Brian, and went to our rally and tally, I would say about 40%, maybe 50% of the meetings that we had, the electeds would either share a personal story, they would know the impact that this disease has on families, and then the other 50% had no idea what this was. And now every single year that we've gone back for the past 4 or 5 years, it's more and more elected official. I mean, we're no longer, as you know, sitting in those meetings and having to explain what Alzheimer's is, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. I mean, they know because they've been impacted. And I think Congress especially just understands that this is a growing health epidemic. So when we go back, hopefully in person next year, we're not sure yet, But I believe that every single meeting that we're going to have, we won't be explaining what this is. The members are going to be sharing their personal stories with us and really asking how they can help. And I'm glad you brought up sharing, what you share in the meetings, Brian, because one of the most impactful things that I think that you've ever said, or really what I've ever heard in one of these legislative meetings. Now, we were in the Tallahassee Capitol. It was me, you, Maureen, and a couple other advocates. And I can't remember exactly which office we were meeting with, but, you went through the asks, you went through how Alzheimer's and dementia has affected you and multiple generations of your family members, and how important it is to share all of this. And you said something along the lines of, I'm not asking, for you to support all of this legislation or this funding request for myself, because I know it won't come soon enough. But I'm asking so that future generations will not have to go through what myself and my family members have gone through. And I honestly, that was the most amazing thing that you've ever said in a meeting. I mean, because it's so true. Maybe all the change and all the advocating you do might not get us to where we're finding a prevention, treatment, or cure, early on. But the fact that you're strong and courageous enough to use your voice for future generations, just in that moment, I knew that I loved this job, and I loved working with you and all the other advocates. So I thank you for that experience and interaction.
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't know how I came up with that, or I know I wrote it down somewhere, and but it's, I'm not trying to create a sympathetic effect. It's just truth.
Yep.
And I just wanted to let them know that exactly what you said. I'm not asking for me, but there's going to be a whole bunch of people later on that it's just going to get.
What's the number that's predicted? I think it's by 2030 or 2050. The number we have now is like going to be doubled.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's beyond a health crisis.
Yeah. So we have roughly about over 6 million Americans across the country who are living with Alzheimer's. And I believe, I'll have to look at the number again, but by 2050, it's expected to be 16 million. So it's just it's a staggering number. And this is also why it's so important what Brian, you and Maureen and all the other advocates in Florida, we have such a great group. You guys are so passionate and incredible. And I mean, Florida is the second highest prevalent state across the country, right behind California. We have over 580,000 Floridians living with this disease. So the Sunshine State is ground zero of this health epidemic, and we're slowly catching up to California with our large aging population, with many people moving down from big cities, moving down to Florida. That was a big thing during the pandemic. So we don't foresee those numbers going away. I mean, anytime soon, they're most certainly going to keep increasing. And so, it really is for future generations.
Well, what I meant, though, and I didn't say very well, is that this is beyond a health crisis. It's now, in addition, a financial crisis.
Yeah.
For our entire country, because the amount of money that it takes to support this disease in the health arena is staggering. But Evan's going to have to back me up with the numbers here, because I have forgotten. I believe it's in the billions of dollars every year that unpaid caregivers provide to persons living with dementia. Isn't it in the billions?
Yes. Yep. And not only to unpaid caregivers that are providing, but it's also in upwards of hundreds of billions of dollars that the economy is really taking on to help support this. And I mean, that number is just expected to rise by 2050 to $1.1 trillion that our economy will be paying through Medicare, Medicaid, all of those resources. I mean, and that number is staggering. It will destroy our economy. So you're right, Maureen. It's not only all of those unpaid caregivers who are providing hours and hours upon unpaid care, but just our economy in general is going to be taking a hit, and is right to this day. So,
well, it is, and it has.
Yes.
Now, if someone is looking to get involved with the Alzheimer's Association, what should they do?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different departments, public policy and advocacy. That's one of our pillars of the association. We have development, so that's like your walk to end Alzheimer's. Brian, we've been to many of those. You can go onto alz.org and find your closest chapter. You can look at the different volunteer opportunities. So whether you want to be an advocate with public policy, whether you want to create a walk team, and raise money for the association, and which most of the money, I'll just say, does go to research funding. We're one of the top volunteer-led organizations that raises money for research funding. And you can also volunteer for our programs team and sign up to help deliver programs to help educate our population on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can be things like a support group facilitator to help facilitate, either couples who are going through the dementia journey together, or to help caregivers who are affected by this and who just need others to talk to, who are going through the same thing, just to feel like they're not alone. So we have, multiple different areas. We have wonderful volunteer, and advocacy families that you can be a part of. So I really recommend going to alz.org, finding your local chapter, and then just seeing what you're interested in, whether you want to raise money for walk, meet your elected officials, deliver programs. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that we're always willing to accept help with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just buying a t-shirt or a shirt or a hat or swag of some type that advertises the Alzheimer's Association, that generates conversation.
Yep.
And it's an opportunity to educate. So, Brian has his Alzheimer's Association shirt on today.
Yep. Show us, Brian. There you go. The long sleeve button up, and then they're also polos, kind of like this. You can see it available. I don't know which way the camera is. Like,
yep.
But you can, we have a shop. It's also on the website where you can buy our merchandise. It's purple, and I think, Brian, you and Maureen were telling me yesterday when we were going through a little bit of this that just wearing the color purple, especially if you're wearing a lot of it, people are going to usually stop you and ask what you do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I'm wearing either this polo or if I'm giving somebody a business card and has nothing to do with the work that I'm doing that day, that people will stop me, or even my Alzheimer's Association face mask, which I've had recently. I've been stopped every time I go to the grocery store. Anything, just people will say, my loved one, my parent, my spouse, my brother, my sister has been affected by this disease. How can I get involved? How can I help? And so wearing that purple to support this cause is super important. And I've found volunteers just right out in public, just from them walking up to read the shirt and say, "Oh, Alzheimer's Association," So Maureen, you're absolutely correct. And you can get all that stuff online. Branded.
So Melinda, who has her coffee every Saturday morning with us, just commented that she is a volunteer up in New York for the Alzheimer's Association. And she said, you never know how much your individual volunteering can help the ripple. And she's so right. She does music therapy for persons living with dementia.
That's awesome.
And yeah, she is awesome. She's going to be our guest in 2 weeks or 1 week, Melinda. I can't remember, because truth of the matter is,
it's coming up.
Truth of the matter is, Brian and I did a virtual presentation during COVID, and the people sponsoring it said when we were introducing ourselves, we should not tell which one of us has dementia. And halfway through the presentation, they stopped it and everyone in the audience had been given a paddle. Remember, this was virtual. Had been given a paddle with a 1 on one side and 2 on the other side. And they said, if you think Brian is the one who has dementia, put up 1. If it's Maureen, put up 2. Maureen won. More people said I had dementia than Brian.
Wow.
But that, yeah, I know. But I use that story to talk about stigma.
Yep.
And how I felt, even though you know how I am not afraid of dementia, how I love someone who's absolutely got dementia. But when all of a sudden it became a reality that I could be the one who has dementia, the feeling inside of me completely changed.
Yeah.
And the compassion that you get from volunteering, I think, makes you a better human being all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. And Melinda, thanks for joining again. And thank you for volunteering for our association up in New York. We really, really appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that ripple just grows and grows, and you never know that what one voice or what one action can really have an impact on so many others. So thank you so much for doing that. We love you guys. We love our volunteers. And Maureen, that was I mean, I've never heard of someone, doing that during a webinar. So, I mean, that's really, it's crazy to think about, but, a lot of times you can't identify somebody who's living with dementia when you walk up to them, and you shouldn't treat them any differently either. And so just doing kind of like a little social experiment like that. I mean, I think that's really eye-opening. So.
Right. You came up with a good point about how we are treated. And it, just to give you a small example, is that if we're somewhere, going places and stuff, and somebody knows us, and they'll come up and they'll say, "Oh, hi, how are y'all doing?" And this, that, and the other. And then sooner or later, they will look at Maureen, and not really in a hushed voice, but I guess they don't think I can hear. and they'll say, "How's he doing? Has he been all right?" And Maureen, being hurt, goes, "He's standing right there, and so far he hasn't lost his speech. Although I dream every night that please, just for one day, let it be with us."
You do lose speech for one day, and
I do.
Yeah, well, that was serious, but
I also have the aphasia.
Yeah.
Did I just say the aphasia?
You're a person of a certain age. You put "the" in front of everything.
Okay.
The Walmart.
Yeah.
The.
I got the
same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we were at a restaurant with friends last night, and he boldly and loudly announced to the entire restaurant, "I got the Alzheimer's,"
Right.
I did?
Oh.
Yes.
He's raising awareness wherever he goes.
Thank you. Thank you.
It wasn't to get a discount on the food.
No, it was to get another glass of wine.
Okay, well, that I can't speak to then. You're on your own with that one, Brian.
But it's the little things that when somebody sees I encounter someone, and I may not remember them, but they will come up and say, "I saw you speak at whatever it was, and I just want to thank you for giving me that information and telling the truth about what this has done to you. I know that wasn't easy." And for me, that not only allowed me to see what I said mattered to someone, and then also for them to get this better understanding of what people with Alzheimer's and other dementias go through. It's like, okay, I did what I set out to do.
Yeah.
So, because I was told a long time ago, if you can make a difference in just one person's life, then you've done your job.
Yeah.
So, but then, you know, there's a whole lot to what we do, and I'm so fortunate to be able to do it with you and with everybody that we have.
I agree. I mean, it definitely, I love working with you and all of our advocacy family. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's so crucial. And I remember the first time I saw you speak at the Pensacola Research Symposium, and I hadn't seen you speak. I knew you were a good public speaker because, you know, everyone had told me that. And so when I remember I first saw you speak, and I was blown away. I mean, you like had me in tears. I was laughing, I was crying. I was like, wow. I mean, it was incredible. And you touched the hearts and minds of every single person in that room, which was over 100 people. I mean, I think we had an elected official speaking there that day, and everyone was more excited to hear you speak than everybody else. And it's just, it's,
No, I was at that too.
you know, it was your voice truly does matter, and you got some good jokes in there too. You always get me with the jokes. I don't know if you're going to share one today, but
Maureen just said that she said I was at that one too, and that's just another presentation that I didn't remember who she was. So I mean,
we don't have to advertise that to everybody.
We're not going to. But no, you know, it's just, the thing is that we're together now, but there were several times that I did not remember who she was, but now I do.
Yeah,
there you go.
We both do now.
Yeah,
well, except for Brian doesn't remember my last name.
Oh my God. I was on a phone call the other day, and I was talking to this person about an order, and she goes, well, whose name is it under? And I said, it's my wife, Maureen. And they said, okay, what is her last name? I did not remember her last name.
Fortunately, I was there and I did.
Yeah.
I was like, Brian, you just have to call me when that happens. I got it for you. I got it, buddy.
I just completely forgot.
Last names aren't that important anyway.
No, they're not. But I have to tell you that touched one of my sensitive spots, because I am keenly aware that I am last in with Brian. I mean, I'm one of the new people in his life, and I try to prepare myself.
Yeah.
For if he forgets who I am.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I would ever forget who you are. I just forgot your last name.
Well, I don't think you'll ever forget you love me or that I love you, but I think you might forget what I'm called.
Yeah. And if I ever walk in, I say, "Hey, you."
hey, Cheryl. You know, it doesn't mean there's another woman. It just means that you're Cheryl today.
Well, no, he had started calling me like, "Hey, babe." And I'm like, "Oh, he's getting ready for his whole entourage now of women. He's going to just call them all babe."
I mean, it makes it easier, but you know, Maureen,
That's not how I planned this morning.
Maureen, I've so appreciated you, you know, coming into both of our lives, and I love that now when we, you know, now that we go meet in your area with Congressman Chris' office, or when we go to DC or Rally and Tally, like I'm so blessed to not only have Brian but you as well there, Maureen, because you know Brian shares his personal story from a person living with this disease, with multiple forms of dementia, you know, 4th generation in his family to be affected by this. And that story is so crucial. But then there's also the other component to that is being the caregiver for somebody like that. You know, the day-to-days, both of your stories are equally as impactful by themselves, but I think together it creates this very, very fluid and effective story that can be really used to support anything, you know, that we're doing. And I'm really thankful.
That we love you. We love the Alzheimer's Association, but I'll tell you, I wish every person with Alzheimer's had Evan in their life, because
Oh,
makes me kind of cry.
Maureen, oh, we promised we weren't going to cry today, guys.
Well, I'm sorry I lied.
Maureen, thank you so much.
I'm not crying. So, yeah. Okay. So, your contact information. If somebody's, I think you put it in there already, or
Yeah.
oh, she's Maureen's putting it in now.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, it's alz.org, right?
Right.
Yes. Yep. And so, if you are someone who has been involved or you haven't been involved with us before, please, if you're interested in whether it's advocacy or just connecting for local resources, please feel free to reach out. Maureen put my email in the comments section, just Holler. So it's holler like scream and yell. So it's very appropriate for advocacy.
Holler for a dollar.
And it's eholler@alz.org. And if you are watching this and you're someone who's either caregiving for somebody else living with the disease or you yourself have been diagnosed and you just don't have anyone to talk to, our most important resource is our 800 helpline. It's 800-272-3900. And I think Maureen will put that in the chat as well.
Say it again.
Yep, it's 800-272-3900. And so that is backed by dementia specialists. That helpline, even if you need to find resources in your area, if you want to become an advocate, a volunteer, if you just want to talk to someone when you're in a really bad place, that's just a great place to call. I mean, our people who man the help line are just incredible, wonderful, amazing people who are there to listen, who are there to talk through any issues with you. You can find local caregiver support groups or anything like that could help. So we have a lot of free community resources that are available. So please check that out and also go to alz.org for more information.
So Jamie said that her husband calls her and the kids and grandkids babe. It must be an Alzheimer's thing.
It could be.
When you go to Alzheimer's training, do they tell you call everybody babe so that you don't?
I can't say that.
I know it's a secret society.
We had to sign a confidential agreement. So let's see. I think the final question is, are there resources available from the Alzheimer's Association for Floridians that are impacted by the disease? Would that also be the 800 number? Because anybody in the United States can call that number, correct?
Yes. So that's so we're the Alzheimer's Association is a national organization. So we have chapters in all 50 states, Alaska, Hawaii, all of that. So any of the resources can be found, like the caregiver support groups, the 1-800 helpline backed by dementia specialists, all of that good stuff. All those free resources that we offer are available in all 50 states, no matter where you are. I'm pretty sure you could probably call out of the country as well. Don't know how much that will cost, but our services are very, very wonderful. And there's a lot of passionate people that work for the association. It's not just me. I mean, we have amazing staff members. I mean, my colleagues that I work with in public policy, I just absolutely love working with them every single day. They're just as driven and just incredible people to work with. So I'm very thankful for that. So just a shout out to all of them. And like I said, if you're still needing trouble finding a resource and you've called the 1-800 helpline, or if you're a Floridian who wants to advocate, just send me an email and I'll try and help connect you to the right person, whether it's me or another staff member in the state. So
the last question I'd like to ask you is, you've been doing this for a while. What was the most satisfactory moment working with, with the Alzheimer's Association? What was your favorite or most memorable moment?
So yeah, I mean that's a good question. You know, obviously besides working with our volunteers and then the moments that we've had in congressional meetings, Brian, but there was this one congressional meeting. I won't name exactly which elected it was, but that's besides the point. We went in. He was a member that we'd never connected with before, and after the advocates got done sharing their personal stories, we had a bunch of legislation. We were going through like 2 or 3 pieces of legislation. The elected officials shared their personal story, which I'd never heard before. So immediately I was like, wow, this member is on board. Everyone sharing their personal story, the volunteers in there really made a difference. And as we were going through each legislation, he was just stopping us mid-sentence, going through it and looking over at his health LA saying, I'll co-sponsor that bill. What's next? I'll co-sponsor that bill. What's next? And in that moment, I truly realized how important advocacy is, and going into those meetings and having someone like me to guide volunteers into how to interact positively in those meetings. And I mean, you can use these kind of situations for really any cause. We're just talking about Alzheimer's and dementia today because it's the field that we're in and it's the journey that you're going through, Brian. But really learning that that whatever your cause is, whatever you're passionate about, is just educating your members in a positive way. Not yelling at them, building relationships with their staff. Is key, because a lot of times the staff are the gatekeepers to really getting some stuff done in Congress. So I would just say realizing that our voices can make a difference was the most impactful thing. And it was almost freeing and empowering at the same time, just like when we're in meetings together, Brian. I mean, it's so empowering to be able to share that stuff and for people to be actually listening that can make a difference,
You never know whose life you will impact, and that's what I love about advocating.
Yeah,
because there are people out there that don't know the answers to some of the questions that they have. Yeah. Either they were too scared to ask, or because I know that some people will come up afterwards. They don't want to say their question out loud, but they'll come find me afterwards and then ask me questions then. Whether it's that or, an email or a text or whatever it is, we can impact 1,000 people and we can impact one. As long as we're doing that one, we're doing something good.
I have to tell you that one of the memorable moments I had for myself was when we were doing the virtual meeting this year and we got to speak, and all of a sudden in my head I decided to make it personal, and I said, I hope that you'll support this bill for all the right reasons, but I hope you realize that it might be to help you in the future.
Yeah.
They need to realize that they are just as vulnerable to this disease as anybody else.
Absolutely. I remember that meeting, Maureen. I mean, you're very effective in that one.
Oh, I'm not looking for that. What I'm saying is that people get so wrapped up in position in life, and especially if they're an elected, they need to realize that it's not just other people that they're making a difference for. It could be them, it could be their spouse, it could be anyone in their family. Brian did a thing one time where he was talking with nursing home administrators and assisted living executive directors, and all of them were probably in the 40 to 50-year-old age range. And he said, how many of you are 10 years or less away from age 54? And like 2/3 of the audience raised their hand. Mm-hmm. And he said, I was diagnosed with this disease at age 54. Now, let me ask you something. If you received a diagnosis, would your community be where you'd want to go live? And that silence you guys just heard?
Yeah.
Brian is the king of the pregnant pause. He knows when to be quiet and let everybody suffer in their little discomfort. So.
Also very effective.
It is. But I don't do it for I'm not trying to grandstand or anything, but it's just impactful.
A little bit, he is a little bit.
Maybe. But you know, when you ask a question like that, and you don't give an answer, and you just wait for it to sink in, that's when things, well, I'm going to say 90% of the time, that's when they change.
Yeah.
And that's when they have their aha moment. And, you know, I'm going to keep going as well as I possibly can, and continue doing what I do.
Yeah.
When the time comes and I'm not able to do it, that just wouldn't, I don't like thinking about that.
Yeah. And you know, we've talked about that a couple of times, and it's, you know, one thing that I don't believe we're anywhere close to that yet, but one thing I do and have promised you is that, you know, whether you're able to share your story or not, I mean, I will continue to share your story. There are multiple times that I'm in meetings and I'm channeling Brian LeBLanc and sharing in your story to make a difference. And I believe that's truly what's impactful, is that, you know, regardless of what happens down the road, Brian, your story is going to keep going on. And I promise you that. So,
yeah.
Ditto.
I know we're running out of time, but what you just said is that Maureen and I went to a conference here in our area, and the secretary for the Department of Elder Affairs was speaking, and I didn't know he was speaking. So we got in there and we sat down and so forth. And he says, he's talking and he looks over and he goes, "Well, Brian LeBLanc, you know," he called me out, and he says, "Let me tell you about Brian LeBLanc. He's got 2 girlfriends, and his 2 girlfriends are Siri and Alexa." And you know, he says, "I heard that, and I said, this guy."
He's a good guy. The secretary is an amazing partner of ours. We're so lucky to work with him, and he makes me laugh all the time. And that joke, Brian, that is one of my favorite jokes that you've ever, when you first shared that, I mean, you'd never told me that one before. I didn't know where we were going with this. Okay. and I was just blown away. I was like, that is just the most wonderful thing I've ever heard. I will never forget that either. So,
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, we need to wrap
it
Yeah.
up. All right.
We could be chatting all day.
Is there any closing comment that you would like to make?
Yeah, I just, thank everybody for watching. Brian, Maureen, thank you for having me here. I mean, like I said, this is the best way to start this Saturday. All of those volunteers out there that maybe think that your voice doesn't matter, it does matter. You are making a huge difference, and I urge you to keep going. Because that's the only way that change can be impacted in our areas. So thank you so much, you guys, for having me. It was such a pleasure. I hope I was good enough, and you'll invite me back again one day.
Well, there's no such thing as good enough. You were excellent.
We'll see about that.
I know you got a long list of people, so just squeeze me back in there one day.
Thank you,
Evan, it was thank you very much for being here, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Take care.